Hello, my crafty friends. Well, today we are going to play around with the cut and shuffle technique again. And I have two different card ideas that have a unique and fun design. Hi, it's Lynn Dunn from Stamptastic Designs. Thanks so much for joining me today. In this episode of Stamptastic TV, I have two different masculine themed card ideas that I want to share with you. And I have a fun little diagonal design that is super simple to create. Now, the cards in this video feature the Legendary Ride stamp set from Stampin' Up. And they also feature the use of some of the Legendary Ride dies, which are part of this particular bundle. Now, the Legendary Ride bundle is also being featured in my monthly birthday card making club. So if you haven't heard about the club or you haven't joined yet, you can get all the details by clicking on the link featured in the description below this video. All right, so let's get started with this fun little cut and shuffle technique. Okay, so first let's talk about how to create this little design that I have in the background on this card. So that is what the cut and shuffle technique is for. So you're going to start with two pieces of designer paper. So you can use whatever designer paper you have on hand. I cut each piece at 3 3/4 inches by 5 inches. And so these pieces are double-sided. So when we complete the cut and shuffle technique, I'm actually going to use this design on one card, and then I'm going to flip over the pieces and use this other design to create the second card. So we are going to be cutting both of these pieces at the same time. So that's one of the unique things about the cut and shuffle technique. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to line our pieces up so that this upper point here, so this is the upper left side, and this is the lower right side of the pieces. So these 2 points, or these corners, are lined up in the groove of our paper trimmer. And then we make the cut. Now we're going to hold these pieces together, and we're going to turn them, and we're going to do the same thing on the opposite side. So just keep the pieces together, line up the corners in the groove, and we're going to make another diagonal cut. All right, so we have our pieces that will look like that. All right, so here are the pieces that we created. We just made 2 diagonal cuts. That's all we did. And so now I'm just going to take these pieces, I'm going to take these center pieces and just set them off to the side. And then I'm basically just shuffling up the pieces so that I have 2 different patterns on each of these cards that we're going to make. So I didn't want to have the exact same pattern for both cards, so all I did is just decided to flip these over so that I could have a completely different pattern for the other card. So that's really all you have to do, is just cut both pieces of designer paper at the same time, and then separate the pieces so that you have 2 designs, for one card and 2 designs for another. And again, all I did was flip over those pieces so that I could create 2 cards that are similar but have different pattern papers. All right, so let's get started on making the cards. Okay, so this is the first card that we're going to make, and basically what I did is I started by adhering these pieces to a 4 by 5 1/4 inch piece of very vanilla cardstock. All right, so we're just going to line up these pieces on that very vanilla cardstock. And so basically I'm going to adhere the pieces together so that they're touching each other, so there will not be any space in between. And I want just a little bit of border around it. So I like to line up my pieces first. That just helps me with adhering them to the cardstock. So I'm going to start up at the top, and we'll just adhere this piece up here. And that will just serve as kind of the guide for adhering the other pieces. So now you can just go ahead and adhere the rest of the pieces. Okay, so it creates a fun little design in the background. So the next thing I did is I just cut a piece of black cardstock for the base of my card. So it's just your standard card base, 5.5 by 8.5, scored in the middle at 4.25 inches to create the base of the card. So we're just going to take our fun little design that we just created with the cut and shuffle technique, and we're just going to adhere that right to our card front. So let's set this aside for the moment, and we are going to go ahead and create our focal point for the card. So I started with a 2.25 by 2.25 inch square shape. So I use the Stylish Shapes dies to create this, but you don't necessarily need those to do that. You can just cut a piece of vanilla cardstock. The next thing I did is just used a bit of soft suede ink, and I inked up the birthday greeting, and I'm just going to stamp this right on the top part of this square shape. And I just added a couple dimensionals to the back, and then I just popped this right up in the center of the card. And the last thing I did is just stamped this little motorcycle on a piece of very vanilla cardstock, and then I used one of the dies to cut it out. I have a couple dimensionals on the back, so I'm just going to pop this up right underneath that little greeting, and that's all there is to it, to this card. And then for the inside of the card, I just used some additional designer paper that coordinates with the paper that I used on the front, so I used that to decorate the inside. All right, so that is our first card design. Let me show you the second one. All right, so for the second card design, I'm basically just using the back side of that designer paper that I used for the other card. So to create this card, we're going to start the exact same way. I have a 4 by 5.25 inch piece of very vanilla cardstock. And I'm just going to take these pieces and lay them out on this cardstock, and then we will go ahead and adhere them. Okay, and that's it. And it creates a really awesome design. So the next thing I'm going to do is just adhere this to our black cardstock, which I'm using for the base of the card. And then we can go ahead and add our focal point for the card. So again, you can use whatever supplies you have on hand. You don't have to create masculine cards. This design here will work with any pattern papers that you have. So this is the focal point that I created for card number 2. It's very similar to the one I created for the first card. I just kind of changed out the colors a little bit. And then I stamped a little flame here on a piece of very vanilla cardstock using pumpkin pie ink. And I just wanted to kind of tuck this into the side just to, I guess, add a little bit more depth and dimension to the card. All right, so that's all I did for this card. And then on the inside, I just stamped the little motorcycle image and added the flame on the inside to decorate the inside of this card. Okay, so there you go. Now you have 2 different cards that you can create with this one little cut and shuffle technique. And if you enjoyed these card ideas, feel free to download the printable tutorial. You can find the link in the description below this video. Thanks so much for joining me today. If you enjoyed this video, please let me know by liking it and sharing it with your friends. And leave me a comment below to let me know what you enjoyed most about the video and the cards shared here today. Have a fun and creative day, my friends. Take care.